Naturally, I would have said that this weekend for Penn State recruiting couldn't have gone any better, but then their top target was a no-show.
You are Locked On College Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
I mean, Brian, as we record this, there is close to 2 feet of snow here in central Pennsylvania. So the change in plans were warranted in this case. This is a Locked On crossover to talk Penn State football recruiting in the transfer portal. My name is Seyko. I'm the host of Locked On Nittany Lions. He is Brian Smith, transfer portal expert, recruiting expert, host of the Portal podcast here, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the #1 sports podcast network out there. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. It's the last call for football on FanDuel. If you're a new customer, bet just $5 and you will get $200 in bonus bets if you win. So Junior Day, all the intel has been positive. We're going to get to the transfer portal. Penn State adds a quarterback. We're going to get some final thoughts about their transfer portal additions later on in the show. All the intel was positive from the people that did show up, including Khalil Taylor, Matthew Gregory, Gabe Jenkins. These are guys that were some of them originally committed to Penn State. The intel's been great, but we got to start here, Brian, because do we need to read something into this? Like I said, there's almost over 20 inches of snow here in Pennsylvania. Kemon Spell, 5-star running back, was a no-show, did not show up, change of plans. The reporting from 24/7 on 3 all says that it had to do with the inclement weather. But what I find intriguing, I want to get your thoughts, but what I find intriguing is that he's from Pittsburgh, so he knows how the weather goes. It's not like he's from Texas or Florida or California, right? He's not from a state that wasn't affected by the snow. But his counterparts, Khalil Taylor, Gabe Jenkins, who are also from the Pittsburgh area, did happen to make the trip. So initial thoughts there, Brian. Are you concerned by Spell not making it this weekend?
Not really. I think that most kids, they kind of do their own thing. And I can tell you from working in 7-on-7, going to camps, etc., moms always do their own thing too. So he may not have been allowed to go, or whoever his driver was may not have been able to. There's a lot of different possibilities there. So, and there's always a chance that his ride just fell through as well. I don't know, but it's 2.5 hours in crappy weather one way. I get it. And getting out of Happy Valley after all the snow is probably going to be more
That was
difficult.
it. It was getting home. That was the issue, not necessarily the getting to there.
Yeah, and there's next weekend would make more sense for most kids that are going more than an hour. Like Philadelphia is a little closer, if I remember right. But even there, it's not easy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like those kids are probably going to have to take some roads that aren't in the greatest of shape. But that's just part of the weather pattern in the East. In January through March, you got to deal with it every other year. Probably you're going to have something like this. They're going to lose a couple kids, but they just come to a later one. I don't put a lot of stock in it.
So Penn State's biggest adversary in recruiting right now is Mother Nature. It seems like, at least in the present. But that's the thing, though. I still think Penn State had a phenomenal weekend. I mean, you see all the interviews, you see all the reporting across the board. It's Khalil Taylor. Says that, hey, Penn State's, at the top of his list again. And Matthew Gregory. These are elite. These aren't, they're fringe wide receivers that have some upside that Penn State's trying to get onto campus. No, these are main targets that are going to be pursued by Ohio State, Notre Dame, USC, and any schools, right? These are national recruitments at this point. And to have them back on campus, to see, especially, and it was pointed out, it was acknowledged that, hey, Penn State hasn't been really developing wide receivers as of late. But with the change in coaching staff, Noah Polley taking over as the wide receivers coach. Again, Matt Campbell, obviously, is the head coach. And now the conversation is significantly different because you can point to your track record at Iowa State. And I'm talking about the track record that sent multiple day 2 NFL draft picks in this past cycle. Jalen Knoll and Jaden Higgins, both who on the Houston Texans, 1,000-yard receivers in college. So there's tangible evidence here that, okay, this staff, it's not a Penn State issue. It was a staffing issue that wide receivers can be developed. So let's start there with, so Kemon Spell, not an issue, but still to be determined, Brian, to kind of conclude our thoughts there. Notre Dame's still going to be pursuing him heavily. Ohio State, of course. I think Miami of Florida is involved. Again, national recruitment for a top 10 player in the nation. It hurts the momentum that Penn State was building because all the predictions were coming in. 24/7 on 3 had put in predictions for him to land back at Penn State. I wonder if Spell did visit, if they would have been able to get that verbal commitment back for the Nittany Lions. So let's talk about any thoughts that you have on Spell, on Taylor, on Gregory, because if Penn State lands those 3, they win the 2027 class, in my opinion. For them, they knock. They get all of their goals taken care of.
I think they would be a major part of it. I think they need to hit some linemen for me to give them the pass, because it's a good year for linemen back east. There are a few of them, Hiller and some other guys, but getting those 3 would certainly cure a lot of ills as well.
That's your offense. Superstar running back and 2 superstar wide receivers.
Yeah, that's the way it should be at any major program. So you want to keep those guys home. I think they're in a good spot. I don't really think that it's going to be any secret that they'll probably, all 3 of those guys will take OVs. So I'm just going to go ahead and make this statement now. This isn't a Kemon Spell thing. This is any program, any major prospect. I was just at Battle Miami with Coastline 7-on-7. Most of the elite kids, regardless of their offer list, even if they got Ohio State or Texas or whatever, they're going to take OVs even if they're committed. I know no fans like that. Penn State fans won't like that either. But the kid you just talked about, Khalil Taylor, is he going to take just Penn State? I would bet against it, even
Probably
if he committed
not.
this weekend.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's SC or Notre Dame or Tennessee. I don't know. I haven't spoken to him in a while, but that's part of it. But you would still rather have their commitment than not. Yes. So if he made the effort to get to campus despite this funky weather, I mean, even for Pennsylvania, it was, that's a lot to get dumped on. So that's a really good sign. I would look at it as, okay, who are these guys going to visit next, and when is Penn State's next visit? The saying never changes. Follow the visits. Mm-hmm. Is he going to visit Pittsburgh or Ohio State? I don't know what his next schedule is, especially with the weather, but let's see what he does next. And does he have anything else coming up with the Nittany Lions? That'll tell you the tale.
It seems like Georgia is most likely the next pending visit for some of these players, especially Kemon Spell. And I hope I mentioned Georgia. I think because Notre Dame has a prediction in there. I would say that Penn State's biggest contender in these recruitments, either Notre Dame or Georgia in this instance, for a number of these Pennsylvania players. But like I said, and as you've reiterated here, Taylor visiting and having you just kind of glowing about the fact, hey, I really like the way that the staff has reprioritized me here. Nothing has changed. And admitting I was once committed at this point in time, so there still is that appreciation for Penn State University overall, even though there have been some changes. I think the refresh, the change was necessary. It's for situations like this that we saw how recruiting went a cycle ago, Brian, where Notre Dame or Michigan, Ohio State really didn't have that much resistance. But I think of the head-to-head battles where it was just all Michigan and all Notre Dame. This is part of the reason why you moved on from James Franklin if you were Penn State, because these players that were top in the state of Pennsylvania were all leaving.
You can't lose those kids consistently. You're going to lose a player to Michigan or Notre Dame because they're Michigan or Notre Dame. That's
it happens. It happens.
But they got bushwhacked, and a lot of it was just simply, in my opinion, because they couldn't win big games. They stunk at them for years, and
it was how you looked and how you looked in those big games. 150 yards from your quarterback, if that. 0 catches from your wide receivers in the semifinal. It's not an exaggeration.
Do you think that impacted what teams said to Khalil Taylor?
Oh, maybe. Oh,
let me put it to you this way. I guarantee it. Yeah. I know a lot of coaches.
You want to go to Penn State? You want to consider them as a wide receiver?
I mean, if I was a wide receiver coach, I would bring up the comparison.
Mention it. Just mention it.
Because it's a fact. So now they can use that against Virginia Tech. And they're going to battle them a bunch. His offense doesn't produce receivers. That's something you and I will talk about. But it's a new staff, and they've had 1,000-yard receivers at Iowa State. That is insane. Yeah. Now Rocco helps because he's a good quarterback, but that's a run-first offense that had 2 1,000-yard receivers. That's incredible. So it'll be easier to get players on campus at Penn State, but now you can sell the tangible to a guy like Taylor or Gabe Jenkins or any other player. They've had success on both sides of the ball with players you wouldn't necessarily think, because it's hard to get skill guys to go to Ames, Iowa. It's just a podunk town.
Yes.
It's Nowheresville. It's very small. It's going to be a lot easier to sell that in Happy Valley.
Matthew Gregory and Khalil Taylor are both top 15 wide receivers, according to the industry, top 100 players for this 2027 class. You mentioned another player, Gabe Jenkins. He's on the defensive side of the football, but what he and Spell and Taylor had all in common was that they were once verbal commitments to the class of 2027. He was another visitor over for junior day at Penn State, and of course, he had a great visit as well. We're going to talk about him and some other prospects coming up next here on this Locked On Crossover. And this episode is brought to you by FanDuel. It's the last call for football on FanDuel. One final Sunday, one last kickoff, the final chance to get in on the action before the NFL season officially comes to a close. This is Super Bowl 60, and FanDuel is making sure you're right in the middle of it with a special offer just in time for the biggest game of the year. Whether you're backing the favorite, you're going with the underdog, or building one last same game parlay, this is the game everyone's been waiting for. This is where predictions turn into plays, stats turn into storylines, and every snap feels bigger. It's the perfect way to cap off the season and make the Super Bowl even more exciting from kickoff to the final whistle. If you're a new customer, bet just $5 and get $200 in bonus bets if you win. That's right, $200 in bonus bets if you win. Make it count, because after the Super Bowl, the season's over. Last call for football on FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of Super Bowl 60. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. And once again, thank you so much for making Locked On Nittany Lions and the Portal your first listen and watch every single day. And thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network out there. If you haven't already, go check out the all-new Everydayer Club. What is the Everydayer Club? You get more access to your favorite Locked On shows. You will get access to an ad-free feed for Locked On Nittany Lions or the Portal when you sign up, and it's compatible with Apple, Spotify, and every other major podcasting app. You'll also get an invite to a members-only Locked On Everydayer Club Discord server, which includes a group chat just for listeners of this show. Go to the show notes down in the description and tap the link to learn more. That is the all-new Everydayer Club. Gabe Jenkins is a must-get in terms of, a lot of these prospects that visited. Just to kind of go over the list. Okay, so you had Cade Cooper, who was a Pennsylvania prospect, and we mentioned Gregory, Taylor. There are a couple tight ends. Cooper Terwilliger from South Dakota, from the state of South Dakota, was visiting. He's another high-end prospect that you would like a commitment from. Closer to the state of New Jersey, Tommy Douglas. Kyler Kuhn, we're going to talk about him because you know him well as a prospect, Brian. Gabe Jenkins, Larry Moon, and then some 2028 prospects that in due time we'll have more conversations about, of course. But I want to focus primarily on Gabe Jenkins here, Larry Moon, and Kyler Kuhn, because you mentioned offensive line. Hey, if Penn State, okay, that's getting Spell, getting Gregory, getting Taylor, any two or all three, most likely, hopefully for Penn State, but they need an offensive line to block for them, right, to set up those playmakers. And Kyler Kuhn would be that anchor in the middle. And we'll get to him in a moment. But Gabe Jenkins, since he'll get the preferential treatment since he was committed to Penn State once upon a time. Jenkins is a hybrid. He's listed as a safety. He could play linebacker. He is a star in the making because he does so many things well. He moves great for his size. He's great in coverage, and he's also not afraid to stuff the run. So he is the complete prospect when it comes to being a defensive back presently. I've seen him listed at linebacker a couple of times, but that's the thing. It's the versatility for Jenkins. Was committed to Penn State, and it seems like things, again, are trending in the right direction for them to potentially get a recommitment. Not necessarily tomorrow, but hopefully in due time.
That's the key. This is a building blocks process. Recruiting is not quick. It is a marathon. It is not a sprint. The more times Gabe Jenkins or insert player's name visits Happy Valley, the propensity for that kid to end up taking those visits and finally committing just continues to rise. This is important because I know he's been to campus multiple times anyway, but coming to their junior day when there were other options shows that they've done a good job, and it's a positive overall vibe, I'm guessing, because this is a really good group that they brought in.
Yep.
And it was a lot of elite kids, again, just like I talked about with some of the other players, Spell or whoever, how many times did they come back? Who else did they visit the rest of this spring? But you can't start off really any better, especially with Mother Nature's interference, than what Penn State had. So I'm good with Gabe Jenkins and some of the, like Kuhn came all the way from Kansas City.
Yes.
But, that's, if he got in, like, I don't even know how he got there. Good for him. But that's a really big commitment.
If they can get him, right? So, but the visits, especially with the inclement weather, it kind of tells us a lot more than we would initially say with respect to this,
Yeah.
right? So Jenkins, I want to point out again, Brian, we've mentioned this on a couple of other shows recently. Terry Smith deserves a lot of the credit here because Jenkins, Taylor, Spell, all from the Pittsburgh area, right? But he's been able to bridge that gap from guys who were previously interested during the James Franklin regime. Every one of them, there hasn't what we've gathered here in terms of intel from this weekend based on interviews and everything else is that these prospects either still like Penn State or have the same respect and appreciation for the university, or now more with the new coaching staff. And a big reason of that is because of Terry Smith.
Yeah, it's a big deal because familiarity with somebody matters, and he's been a really good recruiter for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
He's very well known around Penn State parts because he played there. He's coached there a long time, but he's also very well known in the greater Pittsburgh area. And I can just tell you from a recent conversation I had with an elite recruit in the South who's got Ohio State and all that, he goes by the coach, not the school. And that's the common theme. Coaches like Smith, who are very well respected, they're going to be able to get through to kids when other guys can't. And him being a Pittsburgh guy, being well known, he's always going to be able to get in contact with guys. And that's the most important city for Penn State in the country because it's a very good program. Over here, you got Central Catholic and you got all like Aliquippa. You got all these programs, McKeesport, where Spell is from. All these programs have players, and it's just over 2 hours from your campus. So to have him in your backyard and still on your staff, he could have went to Virginia Tech. I'm sure James Franklin offered him a spot in some way, shape, or form, and he stayed. That's going to pay dividends, especially in Western PA, but he'll help in other ways too because he's been at Penn State so long. I think Penn State will probably end up getting some kids that they otherwise would not have, and that's why they paid him so much money to stick around.
I want to talk about one other player that I should have included in the tease and in the transition. Samson Gash. Penn State fans should recognize that because Sam Gash, his father, was a legacy player at Penn State. Gash, currently attending high school, he will be. He's in the class of 2026. He's from the Detroit, Michigan area. He's basically down to Michigan State and Penn State. This was one of those instances where he could have been on campus for a longer visit, but the inclement weather. Still, I like that Penn State logistically was able to get him in for the visit and get him home safely before the weather took place here. But Gash, Penn State, Brian, we focus on the 2027 class, but Samson Gash would arguably be one of Penn State's best prospects if he happens to flip his commitment from Michigan State to Penn State in this 2026 cycle. And you get another wide receiver into the fold that could make an impact sooner rather than later.
It's not like Penn State's wide receiver room is super deep right now. They got some good transfers, but
they got Kobe Howard.
Yeah, I know him personally. He's very talented, but you need numbers. To run practice properly, you need 8 to 10 guys that can go out there and really run every day. Does Penn State really have what they need? Probably not. So Gash is going to get a chance to be third team just by pretty much showing up, I would imagine, just, kind of being a consistent player. And he's a guy that's a Big Ten level recruit. He was already offered by other schools and the staff's going after him. He's a legacy. I think that's a natural fit. It'd be kind of cool to see another legacy kid head over to Happy Valley.
Penn State wasn't really invested in his recruitment initially. So this is, again, the change from James Franklin and Matt Campbell. Gash wasn't a priority recruit for James Franklin and Marcus Higgins prior. But now Matt Campbell and Noah Polley, they are trying to push this one across the finish line. He still is committed to Michigan State. Michigan State is going to get one final visit, but what Penn State has going for them is it's kind of an even playing field. New coaching staff at Michigan State, new coaching staff at Penn State. So this is pretty much a fresh start in his recruitment. And it's nice that there's not an outlier school or a wild card, if you will. This one seems down. It's a 50-50 battle between Michigan State and Penn State. Brian, I want to get your thoughts on Larry Moon, because being down close to the Florida area, you operate in the southeastern part of the country where it's nicer, right? There's not as much snow, warm weather and everything. But you and I actually, Larry Moon. So Larry Moon isn't a prospect that I'm unfamiliar with, because he's actually from the Pennsylvania area originally. He played at Pittsburgh Central Catholic. I saw him at those Penn State camps initially, and then he transferred to Aliquippa, and then he transferred to IMG Academy. So 3 high schools in 3 years, but you've gotten the chance, like myself, to see him play in person. And when he was a when he was a freshman in high school, he looked like he was a senior, honestly, the way that he played, the way that he operated, carried himself. He's he is a prospect that Penn State would like to bring back to the state of Pennsylvania as a homecoming, if you will, for the 2027 class. Brian, your thoughts about Larry Moon? Because originally I would have tabbed him as in that category with Spell and Khalil Taylor a couple years back as a freshman in high school.
Conservatively, I would say he's a top 200 recruit, probably top 100. He's a tough kid. He's from the suburbs of Pittsburgh, and he's one of the best players at IMG. I'm very familiar with him. I've known him for a few years. I've seen him multiple times, camps, 7-on-7, etc. He's a really good athlete, and he's physical. He could play corner. He could play nickel. He could play safety. National recruit. Penn State, Ohio State, Notre Dame, you name it. All these schools, and then a bunch of down south schools are after him. He will come in ready to play early at whichever institution he goes to. I mean, I've talked to him recently. He doesn't know where he's going, but Penn State's up there on his list. And the more times they get him on campus, the better. So I know early on, Penn State was probably the best bet about a year ago, but with the staff upheaval, we'll have to see how it goes. I'm curious to see him again a little later in the 7-on circuit to see what he says. But that's a really important prospect. Again, Pittsburgh. That's basically where he's from. He's from Aliquippa, which is basically Pittsburgh.
Yes.
Got to get those kids if you're Penn State.
Yeah, just because he's down in at a Florida high school doesn't mean there's that Pennsylvania connection hasn't gone to waste. Again, Terry Smith very active, and it's why Kemon Spell, Khalil Taylor. I think this applies here to Larry Moon. Is that Terry Smith is the Pittsburgh area recruiter. So him being on staff, him remaining at Penn State is why we're seeing this not as a total comprehensive rebuild, a start over in recruiting. And it's why Matt Campbell's been able to take this, because Terry Smith kept it all together. And now Matt Campbell's been able to run with this moving forward, and then bringing over the Midwestern connections, starting to build more into the West Coast. We're seeing California natives on campus here with the inclement weather, right? Prospects in 27 and 28. Crazy to see, but again, that's where we are in the state of college football with national recruitments. You have to go out to focus on Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Ohio, right? DC, Maryland, Virginia, but you're also going to have Missouri with Kyler Kuhn, right? California with select prospects, Texas, in addition to what they've been trying to do with Florida, Georgia, the Carolinas, right? So I like what Penn State's doing to this point. All positive feedback, all positive intel from this junior day weekend, and we'll see what transpires moving forward. Now let's dial it back to the present, right? A lot of the future with the class of 2027. The transfer portal is officially closed. Players can still commit to Penn State. They actually got a quarterback. They got another quarterback in the fold. What's Connor Berry's role going to be with the Nittany Lions? Interesting that they picked up a QB when they got 2 of them already from Iowa State. That is coming up next here on this Locked On Crossover. And this episode is brought to you by Mazda. This is Mazda's moving the game forward. For those who show there's more to the score than what's on the screen, we're going to spotlight somebody who deserves a ton of recognition. And that is Penn State assistant head coach, Terry Smith. Terry Smith has been the one that's held this program. A big reason why this program's been held together through a coach getting fired in the middle of the season, a coach being hired, a change at Penn State, a seismic shift at Penn State. And Terry Smith has been able to bridge all of that together so that it's a seamless transition into the new era for Penn State football. These are the kinds of moments, the kinds of figures in sports that remind us what it really takes to raise the bar. It's the extra work that's off the football field or the basketball court, whatever. Dialing in every detail, giving it that extra fire, that grit, and I never quit. We put the same passion into every model. Highlights make the reel. What it took to get there makes it count. There's more to a Mazda because there's more to you. Mazda, move and be moved. Connor Berry commits to Penn State. You probably haven't heard this name because he was at the Division III level. And that's not to disrespect him. Connor Berry was a Division III All-American. He was actually originally committed to Appalachian State. So think of him as more of a group of 6 transfer. Didn't play at App State, ends up transferring to Christopher Newport, a Division III school, and is a dual threat. This guy is here to add veteran experience, to be potentially in the battle for quarterback too. This isn't to push. If anybody that thinks this is a move to push Rocco Becht that, Penn State's uncertain about who their QB1 is. No. Rocco Becht is going to be the starter. This is now the leverage, the luxury that Matt Campbell and Penn State have. You can go and get depth for the sake of getting depth. It doesn't have to be, can we create a camp battle here? You are, in a sense, for the QB2 spot. I don't think Alex Mansky is a guarantee as a second-year quarterback to be a bona fide QB2. I like his outlook for the future, but this is to stabilize the quarterback room across the board. This is why Penn State tried to prioritize Ethan Grunkemeyer, but I understand Grunkemeyer's perspective of, I just started 7 games as a quarterback at Penn State. I shouldn't be in a QB2 battle and then another QB1 battle in due time with Alex Mansky. Connor Berry has 1 year of eligibility left. I like the move just for the sake of you bolster your quarterback room. Dual threat. He offers you something different. Maybe you create some wildcat packages for him. He's a lefty. He is a southpaw quarterback. So, Brian, for Penn State to do this, this is a nice move that it isn't going to create a lot of headlines, but actually might help Penn State a lot for this season.
Look, you need to have enough quarterbacks in your room that have some experience, that can run scout team, that can compete. Rocco can't throw every rep in practice. He can't even throw a third.
I would hope not.
Yeah, I mean, it's called camp arms. You've got to have a couple of guys that are younger and or just down the depth chart that they throw it around in practice, but they're not going to play much. This kid, in my opinion, will probably be that. I know he probably wants to compete for the number 2 job, but to me, the biggest thing is him being on campus, helping some of the other guys, helping Rocco and everybody else with the playbook and just understanding what's going on, and then just throwing it in practice. You've got to have 4 guys, really, because if one guy gets hurt, you don't have enough guys to run practice right, literally. That's, you got to have a couple guys that do all the first and second team reps, and you got to have a scout team guy. So you need a 4th in case somebody's hurt.
Yeah.
That's just the math. So this is a nice pickup. It's not really going to cost you a ton, and it kind of fits Penn State's need. So everybody wins.
It is a good move across the board. It's also a chance for Berry, hey, if things go right, I don't want to speak it into existence. Injuries happen. If there's a situation where he gets, you don't know. You don't know what that, because you could be the starter. You could go and be a Division III All-American again at your previous school, or you have the chance to play a game your final year of college, or multiple, if the stars align, so to speak. So he'll battle for quarterback too. I would still imagine Alex Mansky's probably the guy because he knows the offense. He's a former top 10 quarterback recruit, according to On3. I don't think, but it bolsters the depth chart. It also prevents a buffer, because we saw this with Missouri, how they lost not 1, not 2, but they had quarterback injuries to 3 different passers this season. And I know Bo Pribula and Matt Zollers, who were originally Penn State players or recruits once upon a time. So there's that connection. But Missouri had so many quarterback injuries. You could be on QB4 in the blink of an eye if you're not careful. I don't want it to get to a point where Penn State has to play a true freshman next season, when they can certainly win a lot of games in 2026. That is the value of adding a player like Connor Berry. So now you have 3 capable guys. Some are better than others, but I'd like Berry as QB3 or QB2, depending on the situation, as compared to a true freshman who hasn't played any college ball.
You talk about everybody wins. Preserve the year of eligibility. The freshman doesn't have to get forced into anything. Yeah, that's the better deal. Now, if the freshman just comes in and plays great and he beats him out, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But chances are there's a reason 18-year-olds don't play a lot of quarterback at the P4 level. So please go with the experienced guy, if at all possible. So, yeah, I would like to see their freshmen gain a year. Plus, they're adding the staff in, the playbook. It's a lot. It's a lot. So how much are they even going to be able to invest into a freshman this year individually? Probably not as much if it was year 2. Like this, the install will be over the course of 6 months.
Yeah.
It takes forever to put in an offensive playbook in particular. It is forever. So that's going to be to their benefit to have enough quarterbacks on campus, especially for spring.
Brian, as we wrap up this crossover episode, the transfer portal is still active. You can't put your name into the portal, but you can still commit to different places. Penn State, like I said, they add somebody in Barry. I'm not expecting another star caliber player to commit to Penn State. Honestly, I'm not even expecting really a backup to commit to Penn State either. I think things are kind of finalized, even though they might target a player or two just to round out the depth chart. They're getting some preferred walk-ons, right? Everything that Matt Campbell and the staff has done has been excellent. I would say, sure. Would I have liked some more players that could have come in and been key contributors this season? Absolutely. Who wouldn't? But with the player retention, the guys that you got from Iowa State, that's what this portal cycle was all about. It was making sure that you didn't have a ton of losses, a ton of unnecessary ones. Sure, there was going to be natural attrition. I would have liked Amari Campbell. I would have liked Chaz Coleman to stick around, King Mack. But if those are the only names that I'm really concerned about, that's nothing short of impressive by Matt Campbell and company. And then you get not the fringe guys from Iowa State. You get the guys that put up the stats, that started tons and tons of games, not just last season, but before. You get over a dozen starters from Iowa State and then some of the key backups. So them not getting a superstar outside of Iowa State and Penn State, okay, not ideal, but you checked off these other boxes. I think Penn State did the best that they could in this portal cycle and then some.
Yeah, I think they're ahead of the curve. This is way better than I thought it was going to be. Part of that was I wasn't really sure what Penn State would invest. I thought it would be a good NIL, but it's exceeded my expectations there. And then they've done a good job of not only getting a bunch of Iowa State kids, we expected that, but they got some random guys from all over the country to come as well, Texas State and everything else. So this class should help them win a minimum of 8 games next year. There's so much to figure out still. They could add more. It's hard to say, but they're going to go to a decent bowl at the very least next year. Did you know that for sure when all this started? No, you did not. So I think Penn State fans should be very happy, and the portal is a big part of it. They did a really good job.
They definitely brought the floor up. Went from, hey, okay, if you went in with the kind of a neutral, right, not the optimistic view, just kind of neutral, maybe a little bit pessimistic. They're in a rebuild. It's a new coaching staff, Big Ten competition, 6-6, 7-5, right? Now the conversation turns, hey, expect 8-4, 9-3. If all things go well, 10-2, and you're in the playoff conversation. That's where this conversation has turned to. So I like the direction that Penn State's trending in all across the board, as you can tell with this episode. And that's where we're going to that is where we are going to conclude things on this crossover episode. He is Brian Smith, host of the Portal Podcast, our transfer portal recruiting expert here on the Locked On Podcast Network. My name is Zach Seyko, the host of Locked On Nittany Lions. As always, thank you so much for joining us on this episode. If you're in the state of Pennsylvania, hope the weather is treating you well with tons and tons of snow. So Brian, it's been great up here in central Pennsylvania. I hope you're warm. I hope you're cozy, all those things. Let us know your thoughts down in the comments section. As always, appreciate every one of you being here. Brian, appreciate you and your perspective when it comes to all things recruiting, all things portal. Thanks for the time again.
Absolutely. Look forward to doing it again.